name is Nicole. I'm a producer for the Remembering Them podcast. The podcast is a platform for people to share stories and memories of their loved ones who have passed away. The podcast was created in memory of Dad, Bob Cecil. May he rest in peace. Your host, Mark, Ryan, and Luke acknowledge the rich history and importance of storytelling within the indigenous culture.
My name is Jorgi Skeen, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet here today. Today we're meeting in Meanjin, and those traditional owners are the Yagara and Turrbal people. And I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge my people, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and extend that acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening in today.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the podcast. Mark on a solo recording today with a guest. Before we get into the guessing games and also welcome our guest, as always, let's talk about why the other two, my co-hosts, aren't here today. Switching it up to the date of release. So when this particular episode comes out will be the 18th of February, and a day celebrated in the US, but also globally, I believe, is National Drink Wine Day is today, 18th of February. I know there's a bit of time difference, but here in Australia, 18th of February is the release day. This particular day is exactly how it sounds. Wine lovers everywhere can happily claim it. So Luke and Ryan, that's what they're celebrating today. There's some wonderful wineries around our southeast Queensland region. You also have some wineries out Stanthorpe Way, where I do some work as well. But Brisbane, Ceremony Wines on the Gold Coast. O'Reilly's is one. My brother Joe used to work there. So that's where the boys are today and why they can't join us for this recording, celebrating National Drink Wine Day. Drink responsibly, guys, and hope you enjoy the day. On to the clues, as always. 3 clues for you to guess where our guest is from today. As always, play along at home and see if you can guess this. My first clue for you today is you can see a life-size Noah's Ark here. The Ark Encounter features a 155-metre or 510-foot-long replica of Noah's Ark, built to biblical dimensions, and it's one of the largest timber frame structures in the world. Pause the podcast now if you want to have a guess of where our guest is from. Bit of a tongue tie there. Clue number 2 for you. You can visit the world's largest bat here. This is right in Ryan's hitting zone, pun intended. In baseball form, it features a 36-metre or 120-foot tall baseball bat leaning against a building. It's the largest bat in the world, and no, it doesn't swing. That's your second clue to guess where our guest is from. Third and final clue for you if you haven't got it yet. The largest cave system on Earth is in this place, with over 685 kilometres or 426 miles explored so far, and possibly more still hidden underground. That's your third and final clue. So we have life-size Noah's Ark, world's largest baseball bat, and the largest cave system on Earth. Very interesting clues there. And we are, in fact, in Kentucky, in the US. Williamstown is where you can see the Noah's Ark. The Louisville Slugger Museum is where you'll find the bat. And the Mammoth Cave System is the largest system on Earth here. Kentucky is a unique American state known for its world-famous bourbon, horse racing, bluegrass music, and quirky charm, blending deep Appalachian roots with global cultural impact. Today's guest is in marketing and runs a non-profit in honour of her late son. She shares her home with her daughter, navigating life as a solo mum after loss and divorce. Through her work and stories, she brings purpose, resilience, and a deep commitment to making a difference. From Kentucky in the United States, Lindsay Brown is our guest today. So welcome to the Remembering Them podcast officially. Lindsay, thank you very much for joining us all the way over from Kentucky in the States.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sounds like it. I haven't been there. I'm not sure if Ryan or Luke has. I know Luke definitely has it, but Ryan, I'm not too sure. Some interesting clues you'll hear back in the intro. It sounds like a really interesting place. Have you lived there all your life?
Pretty much all of my life. I lived in Texas for a couple of years. I was stationed down there with my ex-husband, but pretty much born and raised in Kentucky, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, as I said, there's some interesting clues in the intro where we normally have a bit of a guessing game for our to guess where you're from. So that'll be interesting if
Oh,
you when
okay.
you listen back, see if you have been to any of those places. I'm sure you probably have. Lindsay, if we'd like to jump straight into the podcast and if you'd like to tell us who we're talking about today, who we're remembering, and who you'll be sharing stories and memories of.
Yeah, we are going to be talking about my 16-year-old son, Tristan, who lost his life in July of 2025.
Yeah, so super recent. What happened to Tristan?
Yeah, 5 months ago, he was just going to get his haircut like a normal teenage boy, you know. School is about to start back, so my ex-husband and I have 50-50 custody of our kids, and so they were with their dad that day. We had actually the day before just celebrated my daughter, his sister's seventh birthday, and there was a ton of construction on the interstate. It had been going on for months, and they had just merged on the interstate, and were at a complete dead stop when they were rear-ended by a semi-truck carrying 80,000 pounds of freight at 66 miles an hour. He did not brake until the time of impact. And when they were hit from behind, it then pushed them into a semi in front of them, which caused them to spin. And unfortunately, my son lost his life that day.
So they were stopped for the construction work, and
Correct.
the truck just didn't stop. Or,
Yeah, he didn't even attempt to stop until he hit them. There are a lot of speculations as to what he was doing. I'm not really sure. There's still an ongoing criminal case, but what I do know, and this is public information in the lawsuit, is that he was distracted. Being distracted could be a number of different things, you know, so that's really all we know, is that he was distracted and he obviously didn't see them in time,
yeah.
or he obviously didn't see them at all because he didn't break until impact. So
Mm. Was your son among did other people in the car pass away as well?
no, so just my son. He was in the truck with his dad, my ex-husband, and my daughter Lanaya. They were both injured, but my son is the only one that lost his life that day. Most of the impact was directly on the front passenger side of the truck where my son was sitting.
Yeah,
Um, People have asked, like, had he have not been ejected, would he have still made it? And looking at the photos, there's just no way. The entire engine was completely pushed up um, to the seat. There was no way he was walking away from that wreck that day.
yeah. And how did you find out, Lindsay? Your ex-husband notify you, or someone else?
So it's weird, and grief is so weird. It makes your brain think of random things, you know, in the middle of the day. And I had Life 360 on his phone, and I paid for the gold membership. And so typically you're supposed to get a notification that there was an accident, right? And I didn't get a notification, and it didn't hit me until like last week, which is weird. Um, but my ex-husband still had me listed as his emergency contact in his phone. And so they were able to call me. The wreck happened about 5:30-ish. I got the call at 6:13 that they had been in a wreck. An EMS worker was able to get his phone and call me, get my number and call me, and she told me that they had been in an accident. I remember I could hear sirens, I could hear screaming, and my first question to her was, "Are my kids okay?" And she told me that they were transporting my son to a local hospital. It's I can't say it's not the best hospital, but it's definitely not like a trauma center, right? And then they were taking my ex-husband and my daughter to University of Kentucky, which is a trauma center. And so in my head, I just assumed that, you know, my daughter, again, she's 7, I assumed a 7-year-old versus a 16-year-old. I just assumed they were taking her to a trauma center. She was probably worse than my son, when in fact they were taking my son to the local hospital because that's the closest hospital they could get him to try to save his life.
Yeah. So, yeah, what a crazy whirlwind of an events, and obviously not that long ago either.
Yeah.
What were your actions on the day, and then I guess what was the moments where he was, officially announced that he had passed, and then how are the last 5 months been for you and your daughter and the family?
Yeah, so um as soon as she told me where they were taking them, I hung up and I started praying and I was crying and I was in Cleveland, so I was 5.5 hours from them. And so I jumped in the car. I'm trying to call family, trying to send family to the hospital. I'm trying to call the hospital, trying to get an update, and they wouldn't tell me anything about my son. They kept saying it was a HIPAA violation, that they couldn't share anything, that a parent had to come to the hospital in order to get an update. And I was trying to get them to understand, like, his dad is being transported. I'm on my way back. Looking back now, my son had already been pronounced deceased at that point, and I had no clue. Um, but I got the call at 6:13. He was pronounced dead at 6:12. So a minute after they pronounced him dead is when I found out. But I didn't actually find out that he was gone until hours after, because they were trying to spare me because I was driving and they wanted me to be able to make it back safely. Um, it's the weirdest thing though. I remember I called up to the hospital and they told me that he wasn't there. And I'm like, well, that's where EMS told me that they were bringing him. So what do you mean he's not there? And they're like, we can't tell you anything. It's a HIPAA violation. That's what they kept saying. And I screamed at the nurse and I was like, someone's going to tell me where my son is at. And she started crying. And she was like, just go to the hospital where your daughter is at. And it's like in that moment, without her ever even saying it, I knew. This feeling came over me. I can't even explain it. I didn't cry. And I remember I called my family pastor and I was like, Tristan's dead. And he was like, don't say that, Lindsay. And I was like, he is. But it was like this calm feeling came over me. I can't even explain it. Like I couldn't cry. I just remember like kind of being zoned out and like trying to process, because no one had officially told me. And it was probably about an hour after that when I found out. And I mean, I blacked out. I was driving. I don't even know how I made it. It was raining. My entire body went numb. I remember walking into the hospital at UK, which is where my daughter and my ex-husband was, and there was so many people there. And I literally just dropped to my knees and was screaming and crying in the middle of the hospital, begging someone to tell me that it wasn't true. Um, the weeks following that, 4 weeks after, I only remember what people have told me. I didn't even remember my son's funeral. I had to go back and rewatch it because I think that the trauma and the PTSD I learned to block those moments out. So I don't remember a whole lot, which is unfortunate because those were my last moments that I spent with my son, while he was still here. It's the past 5 months have been a whirlwind of emotions. I mean, dealing with grief and PTSD. I'm trying to navigate my own grief, but also my daughter's grief as well. I mean, she essentially watched her brother die, and so she's 7, so her trying to get her to comprehend death and, life after death and all of that and her own little triggers and the stuff that she has, it's been really hard. And also I'm still having to show up and be a mom, right? Um, and I always tell people, I'm like, I have one foot in heaven and one foot on earth, and trying to navigate the two of those it's hard.
Mm, yeah. Would you? I, I get it. I guess from the other person on the other end of the line, knowing that, and Cleveland's I don't know, but 5.5, 6 hours, I think you said, is that's a long
Yeah.
way away for you to travel and do it safely. But also as a parent myself, I understand the other side of the phone as well, thinking just tell me, I need to know. But it
Yeah.
sounds like you knew in your heart of hearts, that he had passed. What has what has helped you over the past 5 months, or how have you managed that balance? Being a mum, being there for your daughter with her own grief journey, and then yourself.
First and foremost, my faith in Jesus is by far the one thing that has gotten me through. Some days he literally carries me, and I cling on to the hope that one day I will see my son again. Outside of that, I started a nonprofit to honor my son and to continue to carry his legacy. And so that has, in a sense, given me somewhat of a purpose, because it allows me to still feel like I'm being his mom. And I know I'm always going to be his mom, but there's this weird disconnect when you lose a child of, there's nothing earthly that I can do for him anymore, because he's not here. And so being able to give back and to help other kids in honor of Tristan it's given me purpose. It's given me a reason to continue to stay and continue to fight. Someone told me something a while back, and it's kind of stuck with me. They said, Lindsay, you have to continue to fight, because if you die, then Tristan's legacy dies with you. And that just really hit home for me, because I am the one carrying out his legacy for him, and people are still talking about him because of me and because I keep bringing it to the front and center of everything. We talk about Tristan like he's still here. His name still echoes in our house and will continue for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And what about for your daughter? What has helped her, and how have you helped her with her grief?
I can't say that anything has helped her. She's grief in a 7-year-old is hard. For me, it's a lot of tears, it's a lot of sleepless nights. For her, it's, crawling into a box and asking if she can sleep in there because that's where her brother sleeps. And, different things like that is how her grief comes out. She is in therapy weekly, which I think helps. But again, her dad and I both allow her a safe place to be able to talk about not only the accident, but her feelings and her brother, and I let her know, like, you can talk about it without upsetting me. And there are times when she'll say stuff and I'm literally screaming on the inside and fighting back tears, but I don't let her see that, because I want her to know that she can talk about whatever and it's not going to affect me, or at least she's not going to see that it's going to affect me. So I think that really having that open communication and allowing her to say what's ever on her mind or on her heart has truly helped her feel like she has a safe place that she can talk about that outside of therapy. And like I said, we still talk about Tristan. We share memories, we laugh, and I think that helps keep him alive to her. And then also Tristan's friends. I mean, they still call, they still come around. His best friend is actually coming over Christmas Day to hang out with her. And so those are pieces of him that are still here. And so she clings to that.
That's really beautiful. Speaking
Yeah.
of memories, what are some of the memories? What are the fondest memories you have of Tristan?
Oh man, so many. We actually had went on a cruise about a month before, well, end of June, beginning of July. We went on a family cruise and we were in the Bahamas, and this kid in a sweatshirt, in a hoodie, in the middle of the Bahamas on the beach. And I was like, dude, are you not hot? It didn't matter where we were. He always had a hoodie on. And I just remember laughing at him because you think of the Bahamas, like, why would you? And I know people were looking at him like, what in the world? But I laugh about that. Um, I mean, he was a 16-year-old boy. He was constantly trying to get away with stuff, trying to be slick, and he always got caught most of the time. There have been a few stories I've heard that I'm like, oh, he got me there. I didn't know he did that. But I was actually just sharing a memory of him earlier today, and it was a couple years ago. We were out shopping for a suit for his school dance, and we were at J.C. Penney's, and Tristan had the biggest heart and was so kind. He was always the kid that would open up the door for people. And we walked out of J.C. Penney's, and he saw these two elderly ladies coming out. So he ran back and he opened the door for them. And, they were just thanking him and telling him how handsome he was and how sweet he was. And they looked at me and they're like, you got a good boyfriend. And I was like, So he starts laughing and I'm laughing and I was like, no, 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 that's my son. And they're like, there's no way that you're old enough to have a son that old. And so it was just kind of a funny moment and we laughed about it because he was like, Mom, either you look young or I look old. I don't know which one. But I mean, I had him when I was 16, so we weren't that far apart in age. Um, but I was laughing earlier when I was thinking about that story because I don't know if he looked older, if I looked young, or maybe both. I don't know.
Bit of both by the sound of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
How would you describe? You started to talk about how he was a courteous, polite, sometimes, I
yeah.
mean, 16-year-old boy. But how would you describe him to a stranger, both personality-wise and also physically? How would you describe him?
He
This is a paid partnership with BetterHelp. Hey Luke and Ryan, life gets heavy sometimes, especially when grief hits. For me, that weight often shows up as anxiety.
Yeah, it's not always one big thing. Sometimes it's just life piling up, work, relationships, trying to hold it all together. Suddenly, I'm anxious and don't know why.
Totally. I used to think anxiety meant panic attacks, but for me, it's more like overthinking every choice or feeling like I'm never doing enough.
And it can even hit on good days. Out of nowhere, I'm spiraling over things that haven't even happened yet.
It's easy to feel alone in it, but you're not.
That's why we're talking about our paid partner, BetterHelp.
BetterHelp connects you with credentialed therapists who can help manage anxiety and more.
Most people go to BetterHelp for anxiety, and 69% feel better after just 6 weeks.
Getting started is simple. Fill out a quick questionnaire and get matched with a therapist. If it's not a fit, you can switch at any time.
Their support team is super responsive, and with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 Trustpilot rating, it's a platform you can count on.
So let BetterHelp help manage your anxiety so it doesn't manage you.
Click the link below or go to betterhelp.com/rememberingthem for 10% off your first month.
he was goofy, but he was also quiet. He was the type of kid that it took him a minute to come out of his shell. But once he trusted you and got to know you, he would always do something trying to make you laugh. He was always dancing, always singing. He had this smile that would just light up any room. Um, and I know I mentioned it, but he had such a big heart for others. He, even as a little kid, I mean, we pass a homeless person, he's like, Mom, I got to give him money. It's, it was just so pure and genuine. Um, he was always there for so many of his friends, and which is one of the reasons why I started the nonprofit. He just always wanted to help people and he wanted to make a difference. And I mean, he was the best. He really was. He was the best. He loved playing football. He played pretty much all of his life. A week before we lost him, he told me he was going to quit and he was going to take up boxing. But um, he loved music. He loved to fish um, and ride four-wheelers. He was just a good kid. It's a good kid.
Physically, Lindsay, how would you describe him? Do you look much like you or a mix of?
I like to think he looks like me, but I think that people on TikTok say that he looks more like his dad.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he looks like me.
Yeah. Blonde hair,
No,
tall.
no, he's biracial, so he's got dark hair, dark
Okay.
skin, dark eyes, but the smile and the face structure, I think he resembles a lot of me. So,
Yeah. What about as a brother? How would you describe him as an older sibling?
he doesn't have a brother, he just has a
No,
younger
no, sorry.
sister.
Him as a
Oh,
brother. Sorry, to
Tristan.
his, yeah.
Oh, so there was a big age difference in the two of
Yeah.
them. So Tristan was 16, my daughter had just turned 7. Um, someday, well, I will say like until Tristan was probably 13, it was more of that like annoying little sister, big brother kind of relationship. Um, Mom, she's looking at me and I'm like, well, look the other way, or she's breathing the air that I'm breathing, like little, and I'm like, dude, she's like just let it go. Like she's so much younger than you. You're causing more problems than you have to. But once he kind of grew up a little bit, he became the protective big brother. He was the kind of big brother that, wanted to protect her. And if she was upset, he was right there trying to figure out what was wrong. And I would catch them in his room together. And he would say he's not going to share his snacks, but then he would, or they'd be cuddled up in the bed watching a movie together. So as he got older and matured, I started to see him morph into that protective big brother kind of role, which was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. You started to talk about his legacy. Tell us about the nonprofit and how you're going to continue his legacy and keep his memories alive.
Yeah, to give you a short version of the nonprofit, my son had struggled with his mental health since fifth grade. He was bullied and suicidal. We did inpatient treatment therapy, medication, you name it. And after I lost him, so many kids came up to me and told me Tristan was there for me in such a dark time in my life where I was suicidal and Tristan was there. I was able to talk to him, or I was dealing with anxiety, or I was depressed and Tristan was there. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, Tristan was helping these kids in the middle of struggling with his own battles, for one. But then I was like, he's not here anymore. So who do they have to go to? And it was kind of one of those moments where I felt like God spoke to me and like you're going to continue to carry that legacy and continue to be the light that Tristan was to so many people. And so I started the nonprofit. It's called the Tristan Project, and it essentially focuses on helping teenagers and kids with their mental health. So, not only breaking the barrier around mental health, but also eliminating anything that would prohibit them from getting help, whether that's parents can afford to pay for medication or parents can afford to pay for copays for therapy, whatever it may be, we will step in and help pay that and help just to get the kids help. That's what we want to do. The kids need to get help, and we want to be able to make sure that there is nothing that is preventing them from getting that. And that's just the right now, the long-term goal is to eventually have an inpatient treatment facility where we can help kids even get more help than what we're able to offer right now. So
Wow, that's amazing. It's a beautiful way to
yeah,
keep his legacy alive and continue, as you mentioned, helping kids. What he was doing when he was alive, even though he was battling his own mental health
right.
demons. That's yeah, it's amazing. It's wonderful work,
Yeah.
and as you said, purpose, giving you that purpose as well. Um, what this might be a different one, but what lessons have you learned, either from Tristan, growing up as a kid, and post him passing us away? What lessons have you learned from grief lessons, I guess?
Yeah. You hear people say it all the time that life is short. But until you've experienced a loss like I have, I don't think people fully grasp the concept of that. We get so caught up in all of this little stuff, the house is dirty, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it's like, none of that matters in the grand scheme of things. Life truly is but a vapor. We are here today and could be gone tomorrow. And I think it's made me realize to be in the moment, be more present, and just be here to like just worry about today. Like tomorrow has enough problems of its own. Like worry about today. Um and I know that sounds kind of like cliche, right? Like you hear people say it all the time, but it's so true. Um and two, like again, we get caught up in all this stuff like our jobs and all of that. And I remember I was looking, Tristan had just gotten his first job a couple months before I lost him, and I had to go close out his bank account. And I mean, again, he was a 16-year-old kid. He didn't have a lot of money, but there was like $47 in there. And then he had $40 in cash. And it was one of those moments where he didn't take that with him. We get so caught up in money and how much money we make or what kind of car we have or what kind of house we live in. When we leave here, that stuff doesn't go with us. But we spend so much of our time and so much of our life chasing this lifestyle or this dream, when the one thing that matters is the people that you love and the people that you surround yourself with and the memories that you make with them.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I'm in the finance world, and I had some clients once say to me, "I don't want to be the richest person in the graveyard."
Yeah.
So that's I know different ends of the spectrum, but totally makes sense. What job did Tristan pick up as his first job? What was he doing?
Yeah, he worked at Raising Cane's, which I don't know if you all
Oh yeah, yeah,
have
we
that.
do. We don't have
Yeah.
Raising Canes, but we have Raising Cane. There's been all these pop-ups of dupes that have come out. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've got very
Yeah.
similar stuff. So I am familiar kind of with the food there. That's cool. What
Yeah.
what what
Yeah.
did Tristan want to be long term? Did he
He
have any sort of idea?
he went back and forth. So at first, his whole life he said he wanted to be in the NFL, and then he kind of gave up that dream. And here recently, he had decided that he wanted to be an entrepreneur and start his own business because that way he didn't have to work so much. And I was like, dude, you're in for a rude awakening.
It's
They
the
work
opposite to
10
that.
times harder. They
Exactly.
work 10 times harder than anyone else. And I remember asking him, I was like, well, what kind of business are you going to start? And he was like, I don't know. What do you think I should start? And I was like, it's not how it works. I was like, in order for your business to be successful, you want it to be something that you're passionate about and something that you enjoy doing so that you don't wake up and feel like you're going to work every day. He never decided what kind of business he wanted to do, but in his mind, he was going to be an entrepreneur, so he didn't have to work so much.
Yeah.
It's funny, kids don't understand.
On the football field, what position did he play for those that are interested in
Both
football?
sides of the ball, offense and defense. So he's a linebacker. He played safety. I think he played corner for a little bit. Who's on the offensive line. He played so many different positions. Running back. He was just a very skilled football player. Was that when he told me he was quitting, like I cried because like that's all he's done. That's all he had done his whole life was play football. And I enjoyed watching him out on the field. So he was a very talented kid.
Yeah. That's did he play other sports? He sounded like a quite an athlete.
He played baseball up until he got to middle school, and then he kind of gave that up. He was actually going to run track this year, but no, football was his thing. He lived and breathed football for all of his life since he was old enough to pick up a football. So
Yeah. Was there
yeah.
something that Tristan, quoted or saying? I know, the kids have their saying these days, but is there something that he used to say that you'll remember him by?
Uh, Not necessarily anything in particular. Again, I know it sounds weird. I talk about Tristan a lot and I remember him in certain ways, but then there are certain things I block out and his voice is one of them. I know that sounds so crazy. But it I think it makes it real for me, if I think
Mm,
about stuff that he said or if I hear his voice. And so typically when I start to like have a memory of something that he said, like I shut it down instantly. Like I don't it's the craziest thing. I don't know. Some days I can look at pictures of him and then there are some days where I have to turn over picture frames in the house because I can't look at them. Um Again, grief is weird and I think your brain just tries to it's best to protect itself from reality. So I
yeah.
can't think of anything off the top of my head that he said all the time.
No, that's
Um,
okay. It has
yeah.
been, it has been such a short period of time since his passing.
Yeah.
Advice, if there's any, parents that are listening and they maybe or in the future go through something very similar to yourself with the tragic loss of a child, what advice would you give to those people?
The Remembering Them podcast is supported by My Legacy Message. How do you want to be remembered? My Legacy Message provides a service that delivers a personalized keepsake video to your loved ones, often as a surprise after you pass. My Legacy Message: be remembered.
People.
And I pray that no one ever has to go through this kind of pain. It's not something I would wish on my worst enemy, but I know that that's not true. There will be moms and dads who go through this and cling on to your faith. That's literally the only thing that has gotten me through it. I tell myself every single day I wake up, I'm one day closer. I am one day closer to seeing my son again. And to remember, if when you die, their legacy does too. So keep fighting. And it doesn't get better. I can't say that it gets better. I think we learn how to carry it differently. Some days it's quieter than others. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned just turning back to, you mentioned some of those discussions that you have with your daughter, and the stories will come up. What are some of the things that remind you, or a recent story that you shared with your daughter, whether that be a family holiday, vacation, or something?
Yeah, we were just talking about we were building a gingerbread house, which that's kind of like the little tradition. They always built it together, and we were building it, and she was like, last year me and Bubby couldn't get this thing to stick together at all, and she was like, we got mad and we just ended up eating it. And so, um, it holidays and traditions are hard when you've lost a child, but it was kind of one of those things that just kind of lighten the mood a little bit. And, we were able to laugh about it. And I have a video of them making that gingerbread house, and it, in fact, did not stay together. Um, but yeah.
Do you watch those videos back, Lindsay? I know it's probably quite painful at times, but do you and your daughter watch any of those video
Sometimes.
recordings you have? Yeah.
Sometimes we do. Like I said, some days I can look back at them. I can look back at videos and pictures of him, and it takes me back to the moment, and I find myself laughing, because remembering something that he did. And then there are some days where I can't think about him at all. I can't look at a picture, I can't look at a video. I have to just completely shut down, because it makes me spiral. I think with it's so weird. Most of my time is spent in denial. And even though I held his cold hand, I laid on him in his casket, I went to his funeral, I go to his cemetery, I know he's gone, but it's like I can't accept it. I'm still waiting on him to come back. And it's the weirdest thing because it's like you're stuck between reality and like this fantasy that you've made up in your mind of like this isn't forever, like he's gonna
Mm,
come back. So most of my time is spent in denial, which sounds crazy because I share the story of how I lost him over and over again, and it's like I sit here and talk to you about it, but I'm like, it's not final. I
mm,
don't know, it's weird. Grief is so weird.
yeah,
People have asked me before, like, if you could explain the loss of a child, how would you sum it up? It's literally hell on earth.
yeah, yeah. I could imagine it's definitely one of the harder conversations that we've had with people with guests on here, is loss of a child. I just, yeah, again, as a parent myself, yeah, just unimaginable. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really, I guess I take such gratitude you coming on and be able to share that, and I guess as you mentioned, the I think it makes sense having one foot on both sides and being able to still talk about him, but also having that almost not acceptance because his past, but I get what you're saying, I guess, around necessarily not wanting to make it final, and trying to keep his legacy alive as well by doing the work that you do. So I don't know,
Yeah.
I really waffled on a little bit there, but it's just such
It's
a
Yeah, people, I get comments all the time on my TikTok or Instagram. They're like, if I would have lost a child, like I would just have to die. And like sounds easy, right? But what people forget is I have a 7-year-old that
yeah,
still needs her mom,
yeah,
It's don't get me wrong, I mean that would be so much better than my reality, but at the same time, like it's not that easy, and it's crazy. I told Tristan this was probably back in maybe April, May. We were talking about he had lost two friends. And I remember we were talking about it. I was like, if something ever happened to you, they would have to put me in the casket with you. There's no way I could survive that. And he was like, Mom, you would just keep living.
mm,
And that was a couple months before I lost him. And like looking back, I'm like, it's so easy to say, like, there's no way that I could get through something like that, or there's no way like I could continue to live. But the reality of it is you have to. You have to continue to live, and your life is not going to look the same. You're not the same person that you were the day before the loss. You never will be. But you have to keep living, even as hard as it is. I know I can't give up.
yeah, yeah. That totally makes sense. I know we have had guests in the past as well talk about the other surviving, kids in those similar situations that they have to be there. But I
Yeah.
also think equally if Tristan had been an only child, I think he would still, again, not knowing him, I can't speak on any authority here, but I still think he would want you, living and carrying on his legacy and
It would.
living your life. And but you do have your daughter there as well, so I think that's the theme. I guess we've had continuing theme we've had with parents in the past that have lost kids, that they certainly have their other children to look after. They still have to be a parent, but equally, their child that have passed would certainly want them to continue living and creating a happy life for as long as that may be.
Right.
Yeah. One final question, Lindsay, for the main part of the podcast for you. Often our most difficult question, so just be kind to yourself here with this one, and also given the short period of time since Tristan's passing, if Tristan was here in reality and he was in front of you today, what would you say to him?
Then I'm proud of him. I would tell him that I'm proud of him because I think that, well, I know I found some letters from him, and he felt like he was a failure in so many aspects of his life, and he wasn't. And I would tell him that I'm proud of him and that I love him and miss him more than anything in this world. Um, but yeah, I would let him know that I'm proud of him.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for coming
Of
onto the
course.
podcast and sharing stories and memories of Tristan. It was tragic hearing about his passing. But also on the flip side of that, it was wonderful hearing, the stories and memories and the type of caring person he was, and also the wonderful work you're doing to continue his legacy and the work that he was doing, unbeknownst to a lot of people, by the sounds of it. He's helping his friends and peers. So I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful, and continue on doing that. And thank you for coming on again, because also I think that by you sharing Tristan's story will certainly help other people out there, with our humble reach, but also continue doing that on a wider scale. I'm sure it will impact other people out there, and that's something that I think Tristan on the other side would be very proud of as well.
for sure. Thanks for having me.
So, listeners, that was Lindsay from Kentucky in the United States. Yeah, what an absolute tragic story. Obviously, more to come out of that accident with uh, legal proceedings and what came of it. But yeah, what a horrible way to lose your child. I can't even imagine Lindsay, being so far away as well, and trying to. You can certainly understand why that time was such a blur, and she's been blocking things in and out since. But yeah, really grateful and honored hearing about Tristan, how he lived his life, and sharing those beautiful stories and memories of him, as a brother and as a son. And we spoke about some of the other cheeky stories that he tried to get away with in the Patreon, when with that conversation with Lindsay. So I'm sure this story would certainly help someone out there that is going through something similar. As Lindsay mentioned in the main part of the podcast, she hopes that no parent would ever have to go through something similar. And I, in that boat as a parent myself, it's an absolute heartbreaking situation. And I'm grateful to hear about the non-for-profit to keep Tristan's legacy alive. So we'll certainly share those links and where to find those details, and continue on that important work of helping other kids with mental health challenges that may not have the resources or the support there to assist with that. So please continue on that wonderful work, Lindsay, and continue talking about Tristan, because it's sounded like an absolute wonderful kid. Spoke about the Patreon there. Just a quick reminder to jump on our Patreon. There are a number of free resources as well, free episodes, I should say, free recordings on a weekly basis. But also we have the paid version where you can listen to exclusive chats that we have with our guests, continuing on. So that conversation we had with Lindsay post the main part of the recording, you'll have access to $6 a month US, $9 a month Australian for the paid Patreon members, but also the free ones on there. So jump onto patreon.com/remembering them podcast to find us there. And it's also a way to support the podcast. We also have the partnership with BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/remembering them podcast. So that will give you 10% off your first month subscription. Lindsay mentioned in the episode her daughter going through weekly therapy to help her through her grief process. So we have that partnership there, access to that 10% off discount and conversations with a credentialed therapist should you need it for whatever situation you're going through. Reminder to like and share the podcast, 5 stars ideally on your preferred listening platform. Please share this story if you found it valuable, and if there's other friends, family members or colleagues that you think that would benefit from that conversation about Tristan, and also all of our previous conversations as well. And also a rating on the Remembering Them podcast would also help us show up for anyone that is looking for a grief conversation. Remind us to follow us on all of your on the socials as well. Remembering Them podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, mainly Instagram. But also we also have the My Legacy Message service, mylegacymessage.com.au, which allows you to record a video messages to your loved one, often delivered to them as a surprise after you've passed. Another supporter of the podcast as well, and I'm sure that Lindsay would love those videos. We started talking about videos and being able to watch things back, but a personalized video message, mylegacymessage.com.au. Thank you very much for listening to this episode and my solo recording without the guys. Hopefully they're enjoying National Wine Day, enjoying a beverage responsibly. Thank you for listening to this story. Thank you so much to Lindsay for coming on and sharing stories and memories of Tristan. It was wonderful hearing about him. Such a tragic event, and nobody should ever go through child loss. But thank you so much, Lindsay. We really appreciate you giving up your time. And this was, recorded just before Christmas. So we do hope, on behalf of the podcast, we do hope you had a wonderful time with family and friends. Understanding there would have been a very difficult one, the first Christmas without Tristan there. So hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and holiday break. This is obviously released in February, but hope you all had a wonderful time. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to the next conversation. Love you. Bye.
The Remembering Them podcast is created for entertainment purposes. Mark, Ryan, and Luke are not licensed mental health professionals. If you would like to discuss your mental well-being, several resources are available in Australia. Information about these services are available in the podcast notes. Please take the time to contact your loved one today and tell them how much you appreciate and love them.